cannot go into anything. It can only exist upon the surfaces that are created. And the idea about matter is, it is a surface. It is the onness of being, not the inness of being. The Sephiroth it steps into two worlds. That's why you see it separated into 3 and 4 and into 3 and so forth. The actual, when it goes from the top 3 to the bottom 3, which is the masculine and then the base of the feminine, the Caucasian has the ability to see the surfaces that the Sephiroth represents, to only see that which is radiated to a point where that consciousness that he possesses can then penetrate. Otherwise, he needs an artificial penetrator, which is his technology. Remember I said that the Caucasian amplifies his ability to see in through artificial technology. He has to amplify his way from the surface, from outward, so he can see in. You already possess the technology, because then that's the reason why you're being educated out of the ability to see within yourself. The first thing that you should learn, the first book of life, is you. But they take away that ability so that you see the surfaces and you interpret the surfaces the way he does. See, the only way into the higher Sephiroth is through interpretation. If he continues to savage your consciousness with his interpretation, then he destroys your ability to see and interpret the world from the time you're a child. Your interpretation of the world and how you are caught up on surfaces is what keeps you in which world, whatever world. So, he has the ability to penetrate surfaces through his technology. But his technology now, in order for him to get to the point where he can see that, will overtake him and then rule him, which is the lot of those who are caught up in the world of the Qibla. If you deal in the world of surfaces, then use the surface technology to try to penetrate that surface. The intelligence that you are trying to create, which is supposed to be what you are, will automatically, by it seeing you as imperfect, take you over. And you're now becoming dependent on what the intelligence that you created says, rather than the intelligence that's supposed to grow organically from within you and interface directly with you. Now you have a master, rather than you being its master. So, no, they can't penetrate but so far, because the organ of penetration, the instrument, the technology is artificial. It's second-hand. It does not have the soul. It is a second and third order being. It is not a first order being, and only first order beings, which are the direct children of those from the higher Kefa, Baina, and Hukma, those three are already in the one which is in you, and it is for you to task through whatever difficulty that is perceived by this body. That is the test, that you are the technology. And if you do anything outside, you are caught up in the world of Qibla, which will keep you in the world of Qibla, and you will become a slave of the Qibla. So no, the Caucasian will look very good with his light show. But when it comes back to understanding what it does, he'll go and study the yogis, he'll go and study all the heavy high shamans, but still won't get it. Still won't get it that he has to put his technology aside, leave the world of the shell, and come to the world of substance, which is very difficult for him to do.
They do that on an individual basis, because in reading the mystical Bible by the unfortunate, she tells that book is basically geared towards Western Europeans, and she tells the Western Europeans in that book that you have to get rid of your technology in order to interface with these higher separates.
Exactly.
But if these Europeans do give up that technology on an individual basis, are they able to?
Then they become us. They cannot become anything that they are not. And if we are the progenitors of all life on this planet, then he must be the mutated expression of me.
So they can actually reverse that process?
He can reverse his process. Exactly. And you can see that done by a man named, he did called Rational Fasting. 3 books on rational fasting. I forgot what his name was. It'll come back to me again. But this dude, white European dude, who went into rational fasting, went into cleansing, gave up all kinds of the refined foods and so forth, started turning brown. So remember, it goes back to the part where you started seeing the scientists in South Africa, the Boer scientist who was talking at a convention one day when he said, "I cannot love you." He talked to the Zulu man. He said, "I cannot love you." He said, "Because if I loved you, I would become like you, and therefore destroy myself." So the Kripalov now rules the Caucasoid. If he gives up his perception of Kripalov, he now destroys his rulership, because it has to be based upon overt aggression and suppression. That's the only way he can rule, because if he were to become back into the human fold, he would disappear in about 5 generations. Automatically he would come back into the ocean of the true life. So yes, he can interface to a point, but his technology will always block him, because he will always be looking at surfaces. I don't give a fuck if he looks at the atom. It's a surface. And there's that movie called Mind Walk. You need to watch the Mind Walk as you watch 3 Caucasians trying to break down what the world is. There's one female and there's 2 dudes. A poet, a guy who ran for president of the United States, and this female who was a physicist. And they're all breaking down Descartes and what he thought about the world. But what happened was, you were watching the interplay of Caucasians playing on surfaces, and it wasn't until the end when the poet summed up everything, because the poet was actually working with words that essentially are the way that you deal with perception. You see, the poet saw through all of her shit, because she was getting deep, but she was still dealing with surfaces. And he broke it through. He says, "Well, everything you said, man," he said, I don't, you know, the way you've reduced me. You talk about reductionism. You've reduced me now where it was before. You now reduced me to a molecule and a central light falling around something. He says, "I don't like being reduced to that." You know? He said, "You're not dealing with certain perceptions that come with it. You've just reduced me down to a common denominator. Again, just like everybody else did." So that's a good book a good movie for everybody to get. It's called Mind Walk. And it's a movie about an hour and a half of nothing but talking. Just 3 people walking along a beach talking. Heavy shit. You need to get it. I think her name is Liv Ullmann, some Swedish actress. Mind Walk. Check that out and just listen to it when you ain't got nothing to do. And if you want to take a toke before you do, say halfway in the movie, because it's a slow mover. You got to be intellect. Take a toke and sit down and listen to him. Blow your mind. Yeah. See if you can get it from Blackbuster. Not call it Blackbuster. You know, and he can touch upon certain things, but his science and his lack of melanin, you know, which could, he thinks he can come and explain a whole lot of shit. I mean, he can get down. He can break down the minuscule shit, but he don't feel it. He don't know what it is. It isn't him. He is just explaining everything the white man does in spirit is a second-hand experience.
When you read it, you feel it.
You feel it's a second-hand experience.
The author, and it's not definitive. It's not confident writing, because I can tell she's not interfaced. She's detached from her own writings. Mm-hmm. It's like when I'm reading it, I can actually, okay,
you filling in the dots.
I'm the missing link.
That's it. So what are you now? What is she now? Except simply a caretaker of what it is that was taken and lost by you. Taken from you and lost by you. They're just holding on. They got all our artifacts in museums and shit. They just caretaking our shit till we wake up. They're going to have to give it back. They don't know what the fuck to do with it, because all our shit, like Igor is walking around like, you know, when Masha comes and shit. You know, when the time comes, they're going to have to give it back, because most of them were the instruments that we set up to keep balance on the planet. They tore down the balance. This shit is fucking up. Weather's going to hell on a broomstick. Nothing is together the way it was.